The quarterback position is the most important position in football and maybe the most important position in all of sports. Today, I do my research, I make my rankings, and I let you know who is the best quarterback ever. Hi, I'm Kenny Ray. I play sports, I watch sports, I talk sports. I am the sports savant. When debating the quarterback position, there are lots of things to consider. Who has the most touchdowns? Who has the most wins? Who has the most Super Bowl wins? Who has MVP? The list goes on. We can compare Dan Marino to Terry Bradshaw. Lots of people will say Marino's a better quarterback because he was a better passer, while other people might say that Bradshaw was a better quarterback because he won more Super Bowl titles. That debate is up in the air, and what I've done today is I've created some statistical lists and rankings to decide who is the best quarterback of all time. Alright, so the first quarterbacks I'm going to talk about are the honorable mentions. Now these quarterbacks are great quarterbacks. All of them had a pretty good career, and two of them are still playing. We got Ben Roethlisberger, who had one of the best rookie years of all time. We got Bob Griese, who led the 1972 Dolphins to a perfect season. We have Jim Kelly, who made it to 4 straight Super Bowls, but he lost them all. We got Drew Brees, who had a Super Bowl win last year. We got Roger Staubach, who made it to 4 Super Bowls, had 2 wins, but he never once made an All-Pro team, not even a second team All-Pro. And then we got Fran Tarkenton, who when he retired was a statistical leader, held the rushing leader for quarterbacks for a long time, and he made it to 3 Super Bowls, winning none of them. That's why he's ranked this low. Alright, so those are the honorable mentions. Now getting to the countdown, starting with number 12. The first 2 quarterbacks on this list played at the same time, but they were polar opposites as far as what they did on the field. At number 12, we have Troy Aikman. All the guy did was win. He won 3 Super Bowl titles, 1 Super Bowl MVP, and he had the 5th best postseason record of all time. Troy Aikman led a great team to the Super Bowl. He had Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin on his side. He turned that team into one of the better teams of the 90s, one of the better teams in the history of football, and Troy Aikman was a great leader. He didn't put up the statistical numbers that some other quarterbacks did, but as far as being a leader and getting wins, he did a great job. Now, going to number 11, we have Dan Marino, and Dan Marino is on the opposite end of the coin. He could not win in the playoffs. He never won a Super Bowl. He made it only to 1 Super Bowl, but he had the best passer statistics in history. He had the most touchdowns, the most yards, and was considered one of the best passers of all time. Brett Favre has since come by and taken all those statistical numbers from him, but Marino still goes down as one of the best quarterbacks ever. He made 8 All-Pro teams, and second best in stats all time, 3rd most wins ever, and Dan Marino is the number 11 quarterback. Alright, so the next 2 quarterbacks on the list are very similar in the fact that they had a lot of time taken from them in their career. At number 10, we have Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner started off as an Arena League football player, bagging groceries. He went to the Rams where he was just a backup until Trent Green got hurt. When Trent Green got hurt, Kurt Warner stepped in, and he went on to lead the greatest show on turf to 1 Super Bowl win. They made it to 2 Super Bowls. He won 2 league MVPs with the Rams. And then he went to the Giants where he sat on the bench basically behind Eli Manning. Then he went to Arizona where he sat on the bench behind Matt Leinart. Again, he got a second chance, and he went to lead the Arizona Cardinals to another Super Bowl. Kurt Warner went 1 for 3 in the Super Bowls, winning 2 league MVPs. He has one of the greatest stories ever in the NFL. He's one of my favorite players, and Kurt Warner is number 10. At number 9, we have Steve Young, another guy who lost a lot of his prime due to the fact that he started his career in the USFL. Then he went to Tampa Bay, where he played on a terrible team, before getting traded to the San Francisco 49ers, where he sat on the bench behind Joe Montana. Steve Young does not get credit for Montana's victories, but when Young got a chance to start, he stepped it up, led his team to the Super Bowl, and got the win there. He led his team to 2 Super Bowls, winning only 1, but he did win 2 league MVPs, and he left the NFL as the best passer of all time when considering the passer rating. He still holds that record, and although he was not your prototypical quarterback, he was a left-hander, he was a scrambler, and a little shorter than most. He is your number 9 quarterback of all time. So the next 2 quarterbacks on my list are from a different era, and before I go into them, I want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. Now, what I've done here is I've ranked all the quarterbacks that have played in the Super Bowl era. The reason being is, before the Super Bowl era, when the NFL was just the NFL, There were only 14 teams in the league. It's easier for a person to win an MVP. It's easier for a person to get to the NFL title. And comparing their stats to today's stats is really not fair to either of them. So that being said, guys like Bobby Lane, Sid Luckman, Sling and Sammy Baugh, and Otto Graham are not listed on the sheet. I know Sling and Sammy Baugh is considered one of the best football players of all time, and he might be my favorite player. He was a quarterback, he was a punter, he was a safety, and he was maybe the best at all of those positions. And then a guy like Otto Graham, who many consider, along with Johnny Unitas, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But because we're comparing different eras, it's just really not fair. There's not the stats, and you can't really compare them to today's players. So, with that being said, at number 8 is Johnny Unitas. Now, Johnny Unitas, like I said, is considered one of the best ever, but he played pre-Super Bowl era. He did have 1 Super Bowl win. He had 2 NFL titles, 3 league MVPs, and he will definitely go down as one of the best quarterbacks ever. On this list, he falls into number 8. At number 7 is another quarterback from the 60s, and he is Bart Starr. Now, Bart Starr should be considered as the most winning quarterback of all time. He had 5 NFL titles, 2 Super Bowl titles, the first 2 Super Bowls ever. He won both Super Bowl MVPs, he won 1 league MVP, and he finished his career with a 9-1 record in the postseason. Almost perfect, a great leader. The stats weren't there, but what Bart Starr did was win. And for that reason, Bart Starr is the number 7 quarterback. So the next 2 guys we have are created from the same mold. They're both gunslingers. They both have cannons for arms. They both are pretty good scramblers, and they can create magic at any time. At number 6, we have John Elway. John Elway was my favorite quarterback growing up. He had one of the best arms ever. He was a great scrambler. He was a great come-from-behind quarterback, and he led his team to 5 Super Bowls. He lost his first 3 Super Bowls he went to, but at the end of his career, he retired by winning 2 Super Bowls, and that's the greatest exit of all time. John Elway was the 3rd best quarterback when you talk about stats. He has the 2nd most wins of all time. He won 1 league MVP, and he won 5 All-Pro quarterbacks, which means for 5 years, he was the best quarterback in the league. And that's going up against Marino, Montana, Favre, and so on. So, John Elway is the number 6 quarterback of all time. At number 5, we have Brett Favre, who has just returned for 1 more season. Favre is going to try to jump up this list a little further. He is the obvious all-time touchdowns and yards leader. He has the most consecutive games played, which is a very, very, very valuable asset as a quarterback to make sure that your quarterback is going to be there each and every game. He won the MVP 3 times, which is a huge number. He went to 2 Super Bowls. He got 1 win. Brett Favre would be considered one of the very, very best quarterbacks of all time if it wasn't for the fact that many games, many seasons were lost because he tried to create just a little too much. He has that itch to make something happen when there is nothing that needs to happen. When throwing the ball away or sliding is the best option. But when all is said and done, Brett Favre is a great quarterback, and he spent 20 years in the league after this year. And when all is said and done, Brett Favre definitely deserves to be high on the list. He is the number 5 quarterback. At number 4 is Tom Brady. Now, all Tom Brady has done is win. He's made it to 4 Super Bowls, winning 3 and narrowly missing that 4th Super Bowl title. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 1 league MVP. He had one of the best offensive seasons in the history of football when he threw 50 touchdowns a couple years ago. When considering him in relation to the other quarterbacks, he has the number 1 win percentage of all time. Also in the postseason, he's the best postseason quarterback there is. He is 2nd most wins behind Montana, and he also has one of the best postseason win percentage. He's a great player. He wins when he needs to. He's a good leader, and for all those reasons, he is the number 4 quarterback ever. At number 3 is a guy who comes from the very same mold as Tom Brady, and that is Terry Bradshaw. Now, Terry Bradshaw, once again, all he did was win. He made it to 4 Super Bowls. He won all 4 Super Bowls. He won 2 Super Bowl MVPs, and what many people forget about Terry Bradshaw is he won 2 league MVPs also. So not only was he a great leader, but he also put up the stats and the big numbers that he needed to at quarterback to be recognized as the best player in football 2 times. Terry Bradshaw has the 2nd best postseason ever next to Tom Brady, and he led one of the best teams ever. He was a great leader. He was the head of a dynasty And for all those reasons, Terry Bradshaw is the third best quarterback ever. Alright, so we're at our final two quarterbacks, and you can probably guess who they are. At number 2, we have Peyton Manning. Now this guy is nearly perfect. He has a great arm, he has a great mind, he's a great leader. He calls the plays right there on the field, changes them up nearly every play, and he always finds a great matchup and a way to attack the defense. Peyton Manning has 4 MVPs, but the knock on him is, while he can win a regular season, while he can gain all the stats, he can't win when it counts. The 5-5 postseason record proves that, and for that reason, he cannot be the #1 quarterback of all time. Peyton Manning, when all is said and done, will probably be the statistical leader in every category. Chances are he might make it to another Super Bowl or two, but he will need to get another win if he wants to jump up the list. Peyton Manning, an absolutely great quarterback, nearly perfect, with the one downfall of his postseason record. The #1 quarterback is Joe Montana. Now, this is no surprise. The guy has 4 Super Bowl victories, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 league MVPs, the third best winning percentage among the regular season quarterbacks, and the third best combined postseason ever. Joe Montana is a winner. He has 31 comeback victories, and he led one of the best football teams in NFL history. Joe Montana is the best quarterback of all time. After going through all the stats and records and rankings and history, a couple of things are obvious. The first thing is that there's no denying the 2 best quarterbacks. Joe Montana is #1, and Peyton Manning is #2, as of today. There's no denying that. You can change the rankings and the ratings and all these other things around, and you might get a different 3 through 12. But #1 and 2, there's no question. It's in that order. It's Montana 1, it's Manning #2. Another thing I found out is the first quarterback to win 3 league MVPs and 3 Super Bowl titles will be considered the best quarterback ever. A few people have been close, but nobody has gotten that before. We got Johnny Unitas. He has 2 NFL titles, 1 Super Bowl title, and 3 league MVPs. He might be the closest. Or we could say Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw. They both have 4 Super Bowl titles and 2 league MVPs. Manning, in order to get there, he'll need to win 2 more Super Bowls. And Brady, in order to get there, will need to win 2 league MVPs. Chances of either of those happening are not too good. Manning obviously has a better chance. But I think that should be the stat that we judge all quarterbacks based off of. If a quarterback can win 3 league MVPs and 3 Super Bowls, hands down, they will be considered the best quarterback ever. That's all I got. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And if you want to check out how I graded all these guys and how the rankings fall, go to my website, sportsavant.com. You can see the whole ranking system there. And that's all I got. Peace out. Thanks for watching.